All right, everybody, 8 o'clock. I'll give everybody a couple minutes to get on. I have two videos. One's obstruction. Hey, Bob. And one is for the designated hitter. I tested it with Scott. He said he could hear, so that was a good thing. Otherwise, I had a backup prepared. Okay, 801.
801.
Let's dive in. So first video is obstruction. Can you see my screen?
We see you.
Can't see my screen. Okay, let me see if I can.
No, your video's not up.
Here's trying to let Bob in. Can't share the screen. I want to let me share the screen.
Excuse me.
Bob, Bob, check. Let me see if I can unmute you.
How's that, better?
Yes, that's good.
All right, what can I do for you?
Do you want to say anything to everybody while I'm trying to share the screen?
Could you please tell everybody to pray that it doesn't rain for a while, please?
You got a better chance. You got a better chance, Bob, of asking Michigan to become Tennessee than that happening. So
You're probably right. All I can do is dream. That's all I can do. So we're all gonna be backed up, so we'll do the best we can. There may be a time where somebody winds up working by themselves. If they do, make sure you let me know so you can get paid accordingly. That's about all I can tell you.
okay.
I got April's name in here.
Sorry, there's a share screen button, but it's grayed out. It won't let me. So I don't. Let me try this button. Let's see. Hopefully that's working. Oh, I forgot. Okay. Come on.
Okay, your screen is up now.
Good. What I had in mind. Oh, come on, you doghead. Okay, let's do the designated hitter first, since I can get it. I can get that to work. So there's a nice little video. It's about 15 minutes. It's about the designated hitter. I will stop it every so often to ask if anyone has any questions. So here we go.
Of the National Federation rule changes on designated hitter. The National High School Federation rule interpretations came out earlier this week after we had prepared for our clinic this past Saturday. We're going to focus on the second half of the rule, which allows a player DH.
This thing has April's name up, but I
to
can't
be
get in.
their own DH.
Can everybody hear?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
The rule allows for a player to be his own DH. In this manner, the starter has two positions. He is the DH and he is a defensive player. The role of the defensive player may be substituted
Does that go to April?
legal substitute. However, the designated hitter position is terminated. The role of the DH is terminated for the remainder of the game when a substitute or a former substitute for the defensive role subsequently participates in an offensive role, or when the starting defensive player / DH is substituted for either as a hitter or a runner. The NFHS has put out an interpretation that contains 11 separate situations, and we'll briefly go through all 11. All of these situations will concern a player DH lineup, where a player begins the game as his own DH. In the first situation, Jones is his own DH, and he also happens to be the pitcher.
Okay, stopping here for a second, just you guys can do whatever you want with the play card. Just don't get it too confused. Make sure you're straight with it.
In the second inning, he comes to bat and hits a double, and the coach would like to have a courtesy runner for him since he is the pitcher. In this circumstance, a courtesy runner is not allowed because when Jones is on offense, he is the designated hitter. He is not a pitcher. In the second situation, Jones is also listed as a player DH, and he happens to be the pitcher as well. When he comes to bat in the third inning, he hits a double. He sprains his ankle sliding into second base. In this situation, the coach wants to put Williams in to run for Jones. This is legal, but the impact of this substitution is that Williams replaces Jones offensively, which means the role of the DH is terminated. Since the DH and the player being DH for are locked together, and in this case are the same player, Jones is also removed from the game on defense. In essence, Williams has now replaced the pitcher DH both offensively and defensively, and we have returned to a standard 9-man lineup. In this case, Jones is considered to have been removed from the game for his first time. He still retains re-entry rights into the fourth position, but should he re-enter, he would have to play defense and hit for himself. In the third situation, Jones is again listed as the pitcher DH in the original lineup. As you notice, we did put Jones below the bottom line as we discussed in the clinic and separated the roles to help us understand and take care of this on the lineup card a little more easily. In this situation, in the third inning, Jones gets on base, and the coach informs the plate umpire that he would like to terminate the role of the DH, thus making Jones simply the pitcher. And in this case, now he would like to have a courtesy runner for Jones. Since he is not the pitcher DH, he is the pitcher only by way of terminating the DH. The ruling for this situation is that this is legal. Because they have terminated the role of the DH, and Jones is simply a pitcher in a 9-man lineup, he is now entitled to have a courtesy runner, and Williams is able to courtesy run for Jones. Situation 4 is a little bit more complicated. Jones again begins the game as the player DH, who also happens to be the pitcher and the DH. He is replaced by Coleman as the pitcher at some point in the early part of the game. The coach instructs us that he is keeping Jones as the DH, and this is legal. So Jones remains the DH after the first substitution of Coleman on defense as the pitcher. Later in the game, in the 6th inning, while Jones is at bat, he is hit by a pitch, and the medical staff will not allow him to continue the game. Since Jones is not able to continue, in situation 4A, the coach puts Smith in to run for Jones at first base, or in B, he has Coleman run for Jones. Both of these are legal actions, however, they have different outcomes. In A, marked in red, the role of the DH will be ended because Smith, as a substitute, will enter the game offensively, Jones.
Okay, stopping here again. Is everybody's on the same page with this, right? So if the player DH cannot continue, that eliminates the role of the DH for the rest of the game.
It's not on the request of the manager?
Correct.
Okay.
If the player DH is substituted for
Okay.
on offense.
I'm the
As you see in-
April up there.
I'm sorry?
The April is Mark Sloboda. This is my daughter-in-law's computer.
Okay, so if you see the red, if it's the offensive substitute, so.
Additionally, again, because they are locked together, if Smith comes in to run, Jones is out as the DH. Coleman is also out as the pitcher. If Coleman comes in to run, since he is the current pitcher of record, if he goes in to run for Jones, then he simply becomes a pitcher only in a 9-man lineup.
So what are you saying is the DH role's done?
Situation 5 has to do with multiple defensive lineups while keeping the original DH. In this circumstance, Brady is
I don't.
as the pitcher DH
I don't know.
at the beginning of the game.
Just
He's
leave.
tired of
Okay.
pitching, and the coach brings in Kelly in the 2nd inning. You notice that we separated Brady from being the DH and the pitcher below the line, as we discussed in the clinic. When Kelly comes in, we scratch out Brady and put Kelly as a substitute.
Take those
4th
out.
inning, Evans replaces Kelly, so we scratch out Kelly and we put in Evans. In the 5th inning, Brown replaces Evans, so we scratch out Evans and put in Brown. All of these are legal because they are defensive substitutions only, and Brady has never left the game, nor has any other player participated for him on offense. In the 7th inning, Brady returns to play first base because he is eligible to re-enter on defense, and he has never given up his DH role. He still retains a player DH status.
Okay, just stopping again. Everybody's okay with this, right? There's no, I mean, this is, I guess, our 4th year of this. So hopefully it's just, this is just a refresher.
Situation 6, Smith is listed as the 2nd baseman DH in this player DH lineup. In the 6th inning, the coach would like Smith to go from second base to right field, and for the right fielder to come in and play second base. This is a completely legal defensive change. Smith is still his own DH regardless of where he plays on defense. He may move around anywhere on defense, and he remains his own DH. He would simply, in this case, be the right fielder DH, still retaining his player DH status. In situation 7, we simply address the question of whether or not a player has both re-entry as an offensive and defensive player if he is listed as the player DH. The ruling is that no, he does not. Starting players may be removed from the game and re-entered once, but a player may not be removed as a defensive player and removed later as a DH and re-entered twice. As the player DH, he is a single player occupying 2 positions, but once he is out of the game, he is out of the game in both positions, if removed on offense. Situation 8 is also a question regarding status of the lineup. In situation 8, the visiting team has a lineup utilizing the standard DH option, which is 10 players, one of which being the DH for a different defensive player. In the 3rd inning, he realizes that he really wanted to use a player DH option, and he would like to know if he can change. The ruling for this is no, he may not. Whatever lineup they begin the game with is how they must play the game. Whether they begin the game with a 9-man lineup, a 10-man lineup with...
Okay, stopping again here, just reiterating what he said. Whatever they start with, they have to end with.
the DH and the defensive player being different people, or whether they have a 9-man lineup where we have a player DH, a single player holding both positions. They cannot change once the game begins, and they must declare what they're using at the beginning of the game if the lineup card is unclear. If the lineup card is unclear when they hand it to you, we recommend that you ensure clarity of what rule they want to play by and have them adjust the lineup card accordingly. Situation 9 deals with the ability for each team to play with a different DH rule or a different DH lineup situation. In situation 9, the home team complains that the visiting team is using a different method than what they are and would like them to use the same. The ruling is that each team may use whichever version of the DH they would like, or in fact doesn't have to use a DH at all. Situation 10 is one more lineup situation question. In situation 10, Jones begins the game as the player DH. In the 5th inning, after going 0 for 3 the coach is not really happy with Jones, and he would like to tell the umpire that Smith will bat for the DH with Jones returning as the DH later in the game. This is not legal. If Smith hits for Jones, then he becomes the 9-man lineup player. The role of the DH is terminated, and because the defensive player is locked to that and the offensive player has been relieved from the game, both the role of the DH and Jones, defensive player, are out of the game for the first time. Smith goes into the lineup as the pinch hitter in a 9-man lineup. On defense, then the coach must decide if Smith is going to stay in the game and play defense, or if he is going to insert a different defensive player. But in either case, this is a 9-man lineup. There is no more DH. If Jones will return to the game, he must play a defensive position in the 9-man lineup as indicated. In situation 11, we begin the game with Kelly as the DH and the left fielder. We draw Kelly below the line and show him in the left fielder to separate the positions of the clinic. In the third inning, Jones comes in to substitute for Kelly, so we cross Kelly out and we write Jones in the right-hand column. In the fourth inning, Kelly comes back in defensively for Jones, so we write him underneath Jones and we cross out Jones. As we discussed in the previous situation, replacing players defensively while keeping the original DH is legal. However, now in the fifth inning, Armstrong substitutes for Kelly in left field. Because Kelly has now left the game twice, he can no longer participate as the DH. So even though we have made a defensive change, in this case, because he has now left the game twice defensively, he is out of the game. In this circumstance, Armstrong must move above the line into the fourth position where he plays left field, and he will eventually bat for himself. So the question of whether or not Kelly may remain as the DH, the answer to that question is no, because Kelly has been removed from the game twice, he is no longer eligible to play. Armstrong has to bat for himself in the fourth position, replacing Kelly. So for the player DH option, regardless of the defensive position that the player is playing, any replacement of the DH on offense, whether it is as a pitch runner, a pinch hitter, or a straight substitution, will terminate the role of the DH for the game. Again, any offensive replacement of the original DH terminates the role of the DH for the game. A player DH, although he is in two positions, one offensively and one defensively, is still one player and only has one re-entry eligibility. If he is removed as the DH on offense in any capacity, as we said, the role of the DH is terminated. The lineup returns to a standard 9-man lineup, and the starting player DH, while he has eligibility to return as a re-entry, he may only return as a player for the 9-man lineup in his original batting position in the lineup. If he is removed on defense, he may still remain the DH until he returns to the game or any sequential substitute for him on defense enters the offensive lineup. We're certainly sorry for any confusion that this may have caused at the clinic recently.
Okay, that's the designated hitter video that I found. Someone actually sent it to me, so it was kind of nice. Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, yeah, Paul, I got a question.
Please.
Just kind of unmuddy this water for me. If the player DH is in right field in a standard 9-man lineup, who is he DHing for?
He's DHing for himself.
Okay. So what's the advantage of that then?
He can come and sit on the bench and somebody else can go play right field. So,
And he can DH for that right fielder.
yes. But the rule's mostly for the person that's a pitcher.
Yeah, I got that.
That's a
understand
really
that,
good
but-
hitter.
Yeah, I understand. It's basically mostly for the pitcher, but you know, in one of the examples, it did say that the right fielder was still a DH in a standard nine-man lineup, and it just that kind of, you know, who's he
Yeah.
DHing for?
Yeah, he's gonna DH for himself when you have a player DH in a 9-man lineup. And then
Okay.
he can come sit on the bench and somebody else can go play defense.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Testing,
Okay.
testing.
We can hear you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Paul,
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
regardless of being a pitcher DH or just a straight pitcher, if he's removed from the game as a pitcher, can he re-enter the game later on as a pitcher?
All starters can re-enter.
Okay,
And
so
they
the
can-
starting pitcher can be taken out, be relieved, and then come back later in the game.
So he can only go back to the mound once an inning. That's the
Okay,
only,
thank you.
that's the only restriction. Anyone else?
Yeah, Paul, I got a question for you.
Sure. There's Doug. Doug's the one that gave us the videos, so.
That as you've seen this video and how well it is, I have about 20 of them. So if you looked at the videos he showed it gives you other ones that you can see. But if you're interested in either learning more or being refreshed, if you contact Paul, he'll contact me and give me your email, and I will send you what I have from these tapes that he's going to be showing us. I personally think they're extremely well, and there's nobody in our organization that is so damn good they can't either get a refresher of something that they have not seen or forgotten about or learn something new. They are well worth the time to spend 10, 15 minutes on.
I agree.
That's it, Paul. If you'd be so kind as to send my email to anybody that wants any of them, I can send any or all to anybody.
I will. I will.
One of them, Paul.
Okay, if you can send me an email, that would, best thing to do is send it, I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Or Doug could put his in the chat too.
Yeah, Doug, you can put yours in the chat. They can go directly to you, so,
How do I do that?
at the top. You should have a chat feature. Take
I
the
have,
mouse-
I have it and I've clicked on it. And it says show chat previews.
Did you left click or?
I just left clicked it and again, okay. To everyone, okay.
Okay.
I will do that now.
All right, I have one more. It's obstruction.
First obstruction and the base awards that come with it in NFHS baseball. For those of you more familiar with the OBR rules, there's some key differences in high school baseball that we have to be aware of to enforce this properly. Now, if you haven't already, be sure to check out our last video explaining what obstruction is and the difference in obstruction between the NFHS and OBR levels. You can find a link to that video in the video description. And again, I want to stress that it's a key difference in the definition and enforcement of obstruction between the NFHS and OBR levels. And if you're not aware of these key differences, it could make a big impact on your game. So in this video, let's review the enforcement of obstruction and we'll run through this week's case plays. And if you want to see how well you can do on the quiz before we review it in this video, you can find a link in the video description. Hi everyone, Patrick Farber here with GHSA Baseball Umpire Development and Umpire Classroom, where we help umpires to develop their knowledge and skills. If you're new to our channel, be sure to subscribe. And if there's any video ideas that you would like to see, be sure to leave your ideas in the comment section below. Okay, let's get started. First, let's review the rule. Rule 8, Section 3, Base Running Awards. Article 2, when a runner is obstructed while advancing or returning to a base, the umpire shall award the obstructed runner a minimum of 1 base beyond his position on base when the obstruction occurred. The umpire shall award the obstructed runner and each other runners any additional bases that would nullify the obstruction. Okay, so let's review the points of emphasis when it comes to understanding this obstruction rule. First, obstruction in NFHS baseball is always a delayed dead ball. This means we're never going to kill play, even if the obstruction occurs to a runner that a play is being made on. Instead, we're going to wait until all playing action has ended, at which point we'll call time and award bases as necessary. This brings us to the second point, which is the obstructed runner must be awarded at least 1 base beyond the last legally occupied base at the time they were obstructed. And note that the obstructed runner being awarded a base may force a preceding runner to advance as well. For example, let's take a play R1 and R2 with no outs. F1 attempts a pickoff at first base, and the first baseman drops their leg, blocking the entirety of the bag before receiving the ball. This would be obstruction, and by rule, R1 would be awarded the next base from their last legally occupied base, which was first, meaning they'll be awarded second. Since R2 is already on second base, because R1 is awarded second, R2 will be forced to advance to third base. Next, the third point is that if the obstructed runner at least advances to the next base from where they were when the obstruction occurred, and all runners, including the obstructed runner, advance as far as the umpires believe they would have advanced if the obstruction not occurred, then the obstruction will be ignored. That said, the fourth point comes from the definition. Whenever we have obstruction, the ball must become dead at the end of the playing action and will remain dead for the awarding of bases. And the last piece of information you need for enforcing obstruction comes from Rule 8-4-2. It says, any runner is out when he initiates malicious contact. Malicious contact always supersedes obstruction. This means that even though obstruction may occur on a play, if the runner tries to initiate malicious contact, for example, by lowering their shoulder on a fielder standing in the base path without the ball would become immediately dead and the runner will be called out and the obstruction will be ignored. Okay, so now that we've reviewed the main rules around obstruction, let's go ahead and go through this week's case plays. Case play number 1, R2 and R1 are on second and first respectively, when B3 beats out an infield hit. R2 advances to and past third towards home. In a rundown, F5 obstructs R2. However, R2 gets back to third safely and finds R1 there. F5 tags R2 and R1 with the ball while both are on third base. Is this A, R2 is awarded third, R1 is returned to second? B, R2 is awarded third, R1 is out? C, R2 is awarded home, R1 is awarded second? D, R2 is awarded home, R1 is awarded third? Or E, R2 is awarded home, R1 is out? The correct answer here is D. R2 is awarded home and R1 will be awarded third. R2 is awarded home because the obstruction occurred between third and home, and by rule, since third was their last legally occupied base, they have to be awarded home. Since they were awarded home, we're going to ignore that 2 runners were trying to occupy third base since R2 shouldn't have even been there. So as a result, we'll let R1 stay at third base. Case play number 2. While B1 is moving towards second base on a hit to right center field, F6, who does not have the ball in his possession, fakes a tag on B1 as they are coming into second base. The umpire judges that if the fake tag had not occurred, B1 still would not have reached third base safely. Is this A, this is legal? B, this is obstruction, B1 is awarded second? Or C, this is obstruction, B1 is awarded third? The correct answer here is B, this is obstruction, and R1 will be awarded second base.
Okay, I have to stop here. So I'm a big proponent of not allowing this. Fake tags are a bad thing when they make people slide. So you might want to think about giving an extra base just so, because if somebody gets hurt, everybody's going to start doing it. Or say, oh, I don't have to give them an extra base. Oh, let's start doing this. So something to think about.
As we reviewed in last week's video, we know that fake tags are always going to be considered obstruction under NFHS rules. And since R1
In a minute, I'm on a meeting.
the base that the rules require them to be awarded is second base. And since in the umpire's judgment, the runner was not going to make it to third base, even if the fake tag had not occurred, then we're just going to leave the runner at second base. Case play number 3. While B1 returns to first base after a base hit and rounding the bag, F3, who does not have the ball, fakes a tag on B1. The umpire judges that if the fake tag had not occurred, B1 would have only been able to stay at first base. Is this A, this is legal, B, this is obstruction, B1 is awarded first, or C, this is obstruction, B1 is awarded second? The correct answer here is C. This is obstruction, and B1 will be awarded second base. And again, the reasoning for the award of second base is that by rule in NFHS rules, any obstruction is going to require the obstructed runner be awarded at least one base from their last legally occupied base. Since B1 had just rounded first base was the last legally occupied base, and the fake tag being obstruction means that we're going to have to reward them with second base.
Okay, one more. Make sure the first baseman obstructs really bad. If it's just a base hit and the guy's coming back to the bag and he bumps him a little bit, make sure there's a reason to give him an extra base.
Case play number 4. With one.
Sorry about that, but make sure it's obstruction in this case. I mean, in all cases, but especially this one.
Now, R2 on second and R1 on first. B4 hits a ground ball directly to F1, who throws to F5 for the force out on R2 at third. F5 then throws to F3 in time to put out B4 at first base. During the play, F6 obstructed R2, preventing him from reaching third base. Is this A, the play stands, B, R2 is awarded third, R1 is awarded first, B4 is out, C, R2 is awarded third, R1 is awarded second, B4 is awarded first, D, R2 is out, R1 is awarded second, B4 is awarded first, or E, R2 is awarded third, R1 is awarded second, B4 is out.
Okay, the check mark's going to be wrong, so here it goes.
Correct answer here is E. R2
So the correct answer is E, Echo, not C, Charlie.
is going to be awarded third because they're the runner that was
Makes
obstructed.
sense.
And that obstruction occurred between second and third, and they have to be awarded one base. For that reason, they're going to be awarded third. Now, remember that in high school rules, this is a delayed dead ball, even though they were making a play to retire R2. For that reason, R1, who will have advanced to second on this play, will get to stay at second base. But the Allen B4, who was not obstructed during the play, is going to remain in place. This leaves us with R2 at third, R1 at second, and B4 being the only out on this play. Case play number 5. R1, who's on first base, attempts to steal second base. F2 does not make a throw. F6 fakes a tag on R1 coming into second. Is this A, this is legal, B, this is obstruction, R1 is awarded second, or C, this is obstruction, R1 is awarded third? The correct answer here is B, this is obstruction, and since R1 had not yet acquired second base, their award on the play is going to be second base. Okay.
Again, I would be careful about only awarding second base, but by rule, you
Play number
Lord,
7.
by rule, you can, it's just second base, but don't be afraid to give him third. You don't want this to happen more than once a decade.
6.
Yeah, Paul, somehow I got muted, but I got back on. Your catch on the previous one was fantastic. It was good. A good catch on that one that they had the wrong check mark.
Okay, thanks. Let's try 6 here.
You know, guys just don't appreciate how much you do it for us.
Here we go. Let's do play
Case
6.
play number 6. R1, who is on first base, attempts to steal second base. F2 throws the ball into center field. F6 fakes a tag on R1 coming into second. Is this A, this is legal? B, this is obstruction. R1 must be and can only be awarded second. C, this is obstruction. R1 must be and can only be awarded third. Or D, this is obstruction. R1 must be awarded at least second, but could be awarded additional bases. The correct answer here is D. Since R1 had not yet acquired second base, by rule, they must at least be awarded second. However, if the umpire believes that had the obstruction not occurred, they would have grounded second and safely made it to third, then the umpire can award third base as well. Case play.
Okay, so there's another thing. You just can't run until you're out and then say, oh, I was obstructed at second. When, okay, you might get third, but there's no way you can score on the play and you're out at home by 30 feet, then you're out. So if the runner makes the base you think and be generous, you think they could have made, and then they try and go to the next base, they just can't do that. So use your best judgment.
Number 7. With no outs, R2 is obstructed after rounding third. B3 then interferes with F3. Is this A, R2 is returned to second, B3 is out? B, R2 is returned to third, B3 is out? C, R2 is awarded home, B3 is out? Or D, R2 is out, B3 is awarded first? The correct answer here is C. R2 has to be awarded home because they were instructed after having touched third base. Since that made third base their last legally occupied base, by rule, they have to advance at least one base, and since the obstruction occurred before the interference, that means sending them to home. And since B3 did commit interference on the play, B3 is going to be out. Case play number 8. With R1 at first, B2 hits a sharp line drive down the line into the right field corner. After he rounds second base, F6 reaches out and clotheslines R1, bringing him to the ground. As R1 is on the ground, B2 passes R1 and is thrown out at third base. The contact is malicious and will have F6 ejected from the game. Is this A, this is obstruction and a delayed dead ball? R1 is awarded at least third and potentially home. The out on B2 stands. B, this is obstruction and a delayed dead ball. R1 is awarded at least third and potentially home. B2 is awarded second. C, this is obstruction and a delayed dead ball. R1 is awarded home. B2 is awarded third. D, this is obstruction and an immediate dead ball. R1 can only be awarded the next base, third. B2 is awarded first. Or E, this is obstruction and an immediate dead ball. R1 is awarded at least third and potentially home if the umpire judges that would nullify the obstruction malicious contact. B2 is awarded at least first, and any additional bases the umpire judges that would have made had the malicious contact not occurred. The correct answer here is E. Yes, this is obstruction, but because we had malicious contact, the ball by rule must become dead when that occurs. Since this is an automatic dead ball, we can ignore the rest of the play and instead we'll have to award bases according to the obstruction rules. First, let's take R1. Since R1 had touched second base and was then obstructed, R1 is awarded at least third base. But as the umpire, if we judge that they would have made it to home, then we can award them home as well. And B2 on this play is going to be awarded at least first base. But as the umpires, we can award them additional bases that we believe they would have made it to had the obstruction not occurred, causing a dead ball. So there you have it, everyone. Our review of base awards for obstruction in NFHS baseball rules. If you found this video helpful, be sure.
Okay, that's it for the video sessions. Or does anybody have any questions on obstruction first? Like, clear enough for everybody to make it through?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is hindering a runner enough to call an obstruction? I think I have an idea what the answer is, but I want to hear what everyone else says. And this is Courtney, by the way.
That's why they're paying you the big bucks, Courtney. If you feel the hindering is warrants an obstruction, I'll call obstruction. We're getting paid for our judgment, so I know it's big bucks and everything, but I hope
All
that
right,
helps.
Thanks, Paul. It does.
Yeah, Paul, Mark Slobota.
Yes, Mark.
In the case of base runners running second or third, for example, or even a base runner trying to get back to first on a fake tag, they could get kind of tricky about whether they had acquired the bag first. I'm thinking awards as well as base runners returning back to their previous base.
If they've, in my opinion, this one umpire's opinion, if they make the guy slide and he shouldn't have to, I would call obstruction.
Yeah. How about a base runner returning to first after a pickoff attempt? You're going to award second to the base runner if he doesn't have the ball?
What do you mean by pickoff attempt? How's that for a question?
From the pitcher to the first baseman.
So the pitcher stepped off and the
And
runner dove back.
yeah, and the first baseman didn't have the ball yet.
Well, if he's diving back already, that means my opinion, if he's diving, he's on the ground already, so he knows he's in jeopardy. So, but he's probably going to have to slide. My opinion on obstruction in that instance would be if he doesn't have to slide and he makes him slide thinking the ball's coming in, that would be obstruction. If he's got to dive back to first anyways, he's on the ground. It's no big deal.
Okay, all right.
But again, it's always score, time, and situation. So what's the score? What inning are we in? What's the situation? Has it been a chippy game? Has there been a lot of cheap talk running back and forth?
Ooh,
Do what you have to do then. Sometimes you have to do it.
Paul, I think the bottom line here is, by the grace of God, we are given extra time to actually think a play through before we make the final ruling, since this is a dead ball delayed. So we can review the situation in our minds before we make the call of obstruction. And if you need the obstruction in order to enforce, don't do this crap. You can do it, or you can ignore it and stop creating an extra controversy during the game. And I find that extremely beneficial, because I have been one in the past that's overly strict on the rules. And this tape woke me up to the fact is, think it through before you make the ruling. And I hope everybody else got the same idea. You don't always have to enforce what could be considered obstruction. It's if it was, then you have to, and then you have to go by judgment from there as to how far you let the runners go.
Yes, yes. And my favorite saying, don't let anybody get away with anything.
Bingo.
They're trying to get away with something, penalize it, stop it right as soon as you possibly can.
Interesting.
Anybody else?
Act fast too.
Okay.
I got a question for Bob Check. Bob, I'm not picking on you with this. It's just you're experienced. You've been around for years, et cetera, et cetera. What is your personal feeling about the tape? You're a very experienced official. You've had high games done. Do you think with all your experience that you learned something or were refreshed anything by anything inside this, the two tapes that we saw today? Anything that refreshed your memory or brought something to you or something you had forgotten about in the past?
I think Bob was muted.
Trying to get him on. No, he's
Yeah,
Probably
yeah,
all the
he
above.
was.
there he is.
Probably all the above. It makes me think about things and refreshes my memory.
Thank you. Another thing, Bob, is don't forget I'm back this year.
I know, I gotta get you back in Arbor. My fault. I'll take care of that tonight.
No problem, sir. I understand. You got one hell of a bad job at this time of year, I'll tell you. But just don't flood me with a ton, because I keep in mind my age too.
We'll do what we can to keep you busy.
Thank you, sir.
You're working every day, Doug. Don't worry about it.
No, at 76, having had a stroke once and taken 3 years to recover from it, I don't need every day, Paul.
Okay, so
I just love the game, and I want as much as I can to be eligible for, but it's not a mandatory requirement anymore.
okay, so no double headers then.
I'm not saying against that. It's
Oh, okay.
possible.
Okay.
I'm just
So-
not going to work solo, period.
Oh, God. Okay, so everybody saw me sign on. I'm going to go through the process if you want to be oh, I'm sorry. I guess I should say, are there any other questions on any of this? So I'm going, yes,
Excuse me. Is the delay dead ball signal supposed to still be used, or is that out of our mechanics?
yes, yeah, you can use it. Hey,
Okay.
you don't have to run with your arm sticking out, but yeah,
Okay.
stick your left arm out. When you call it, stick your left arm out, then point with your right. That's obstruction. As
Thank
loud
you.
as you can. Nobody's gonna hear you, but as loud as you can.
Be a cop. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, you're. Okay, so I'm going to go over what all the stuff you need to do to be eligible for the playoffs. So everybody saw me sign in, right? So after you sign in, come to my MHSAA, click on official services.
Hey, Bob, one more thing for you. I asked that question basically because I noticed how many, after he started showing the tapes, left the site thinking, in their opinion, in my opinion, they're thinking they're so dang good that they don't have to watch this stuff. And you gave me the feedback exactly what I was looking for. That it is can be beneficial for all of us, no matter how good we think we are. And I appreciate it. Thank you, Bob.
All right.
Yeah, no, yeah, thanks, Doug.
Hey, Paul.
I love these.
Hey, Paul. Real quick. I don't know who that was speaking, but I have kind of been keeping track of the participants, and no one has left the site at all. It was 21 people. Now it's 20 people. So I don't want to get the misnotion that people left because the video came up. There's still 20 people. There's still 20 participants still on this call, and it was 21 at the time the video was going. So I just want to make that known as well.
That is correct. But when you look at the list of participants, many are eliminated from the video and verbal, which means they signed in long enough to quote unquote get credit for being good members of the association, and got nothing from the meeting, and that pisses me off greatly, because I don't think we got enough true members eligible for the state tournament, and that concerns me greatly. It's called in good standing.
We hear you, Doug. We hear
Thank you, Paul.
It's just,
I'm,
It is
so- I'm
what-
sorry. I'm sorry, but he opened the door. It's something that bugs me.
it is what it is. Okay,
Yes, it is.
um, I guess the first thing you have to do is, oh Lord, where do they go?
Exams.
No, it's the rules meeting. I'm sorry, the rules meeting is the very first thing we have to do, right? So there's
Oh.
2 meetings you have to do. You have the baseball rules meeting and the officials rules meeting. So the officials rules meeting, I believe, has to go first. If all you do is baseball, you have to do the officials rules meeting. It's only 16 minutes. The baseball rules meeting's only 17 minutes, so you have to do a half an hour. Get those out of the way, get your certificate. So then we got to do the availabilities and conflicts. So we just click on availability and conflicts. And make sure we do if we're doing baseball, bring up baseball. Tell them what dates you're available. Tell them what schools you either don't want to work or cannot work. And I don't see a save button. No save button. Okay. So
I think that apparently when you put the dates in there saying it's available, it's automatically saved.
It's right there at the bottom underneath the comment there.
Yeah, under the
Right.
conflict of interest.
Okay. It's not here on my screen, so I believe you, and I kind of remember having to push the button. So
Well,
But yeah,
update your screen, Paul.
make sure you click the button. That's all I'm getting at. Since its availability is closed, that's what the problem is. So you can't do that anymore. So if you need to do this and you haven't done that, you're going to have to call Ryan up at the state. He'll take care of you. Baseball. Okay, so then we have to do the exam. So, well, yeah, so we have to do the baseball exam, right? Let's see if I can't see. So for those of you that were here last time, if you take the exam and it does not show up in your history, there's a button right here next that says missing an exam. It will update your exams. So don't panic that it didn't take or whatever. Click that button and then it'll show up down in the exam history.
I got a question about the exam,
Yes.
and I'm wondering if it happened to somebody else recently. But I took the exam and I got one wrong, and the answer that it gave was incorrect. And I contacted Ryan about it and haven't heard from him. So I'm just kind of wondering if anybody else has taken that test recently and maybe had the same issue. It's question number 13 too, by the way.
Well, I've noticed from past exams, there seems to be one question every year that is controversial, and what they say is the right answer, in my opinion anyway, is drastically wrong, and I can back mine up by rules. I've never said anything, but I probably should have. We all should probably inform them what we think, and they'll correct us if we are wrong in our interpretation, because that's what it is interpretations.
I never had that.
Well, let's go take a look at 13 since we're talking about it. Okay, so R1 and R2, 2 outs, B5 lifts a long fly ball inside the left field foul line. Then I get cut off. So
Okay, with runner one,
Fair
runner
ball.
two.
I got it.
Okay, you got it, Paul.
Fair ball fair Lord. Fair by inches. The left fielder reaches to catch the fly ball, but his reach comes up short and the ball deflects off his glove over the fence in foul territory. So it's not a home run because it didn't go over the fence in fair territory. B, it's not a foul ball because he touched it in fair territory. C, the batter is awarded second base and 2 bases are awarded for all runners. So it'll be C because the ball deflected from fair territory out of play. So it'll be 2 bases from the time of the pitch in this instance.
Yeah, I chose C when we went over the test. Actually, you told me it was C. And it's the answer coming up is D.
That makes absolutely no sense. So
C was correct on
okay,
my
so yeah,
exam.
now I understand. Now I understand where you're coming from.
Then that should be reported to the state because I happen to agree with the gentleman that was just talking. We got the correct answer, but they're giving us crap. But I'll be honest with you, if that's the only question that they say you missed, be happy as hell. Seriously, you know you got it right. They screwed up. Let them know they screwed up and they can correct it on their own.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm fine. I'm not going to retake it. I'm just, for my own edification.
I get one every year, Courtney. I get one of those almost every year.
Okay, so we
How
did.
about you, Paul? You get one every year about the
Yeah,
same way.
at least I'm always like first, so I always get a couple. And then I hack away at it. So
Yeah.
so so we did availabilities and contract conflicts, exams. We're not doing crews. Make sure you're a member in good standing, right? And an
That means
association
actually
somewhere.
attending too.
So
Sorry, I didn't mean that.
it's all right. Here's if you need to put it in officials report, here's where you put it in. We did rules meetings. If you have to do your schedule, and we have to do a schedule.
Yeah, I have to do a schedule, but I got to get one first.
Gotcha. Make sure you're on boys baseball if you want to put a schedule in for boys baseball. First thing you want to do is put your desired zone in. We're zone 3 here in the Tri-County. So make sure you save the zone.
Question, Paul, about zone 3.
Yes.
Does that include McBride and I can't think of his name, damn it.
Well, we're Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne counties, so zone 3.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, but it doesn't mean you're going to end up in zone 3. I've ended up in.
I understand that. It's just there's other assigners available to our association. There's Bob and there's McBride, and God save my brain, I can't think of the third one at the moment. But those are, we all work for all 3 of them as in essence, and it's just a matter of making sure it's right.
So if you put your date of the game in, put your host in, you just can't put Crestwood in. You have to put, let's do this again. You can't just put Crestwood in. Yeah, you have to come down and actually select Crestwood HS Dearborn Heights. So if it's a double header, don't forget to make it a double header. Put Farmington in, submit your contest. And it will show up here. Singles, doubles, all the fun stuff.
I want to see that doubleheader.
Oh God, no. No, you don't. God, no, you don't.
Hey, Paul, who signs that former Tiger Stadium site? Is that?
I think each individual school contacts the former Tiger Stadium site.
Oh,
I think. I don't think anybody specifically owns it.
I seen Detroit Public Schools playing down there. So,
because last year I did Lincoln Park. I did a Lincoln Park doubleheader down at Michigan in Trouble.
right.
It's not exclusive to any one conference. They all.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I think whoever gets on the phone first.
Right. They've
So
had
it's not-
teams from Flint come down there and play. So
It's 9 o'clock. So one one more thing. So the school sportsmanship feedback, I went over this really quick at the end of last meeting too. So if you want to put stuff in, say, you know, Farmington, make sure you click on the school. If they're the host school, what day it was. What level it was. How were the kids? Did they meet expectation, exceed, greatly exceed? How was the coaching staff? Same thing.
Paul,
And-
Paul, when you fill these out and send them in, do the schools get a report of whom made those comments?
No,
Thank you.
they just get an award if they're like in the top 10 in the, I don't know if it's their region or where it is, but they'll get an award. And if you go in, you don't work basketball. If you work basketball, you'll see these things hanging on the wall at the school. So, and don't forget to hit save. I don't want to keep anybody past 9 o'clock, which I've done already. So 9:01. Does anybody have any questions?
I want to thank you very much. I thought this was one of the better presentations we've had. You know my feeling on the tapes. Bob, you've been very valuable to me with your answers to my questions. I appreciate it highly. It's honest, and I still say we had a lot of members choose out on the video portion that I think were there, and that's always been a bugaboo of mine, and I apologize for bringing it up to the group as a whole. But
Good night, all.
good night.
Good night, everybody.
No.